Hello, dear listeners. Today, we're going to share the life story of one of literature's most powerful female characters. Jane Eyre, the timeless classic by Charlotte Brontë, is not just a love story. It's an epic tale of freedom, resistance, and self-respect. In this video, we'll dive deep into Jane's enchanting journey from orphanhood to inner strength, from love to liberation. If you're ready, let's embark on a journey beyond time. Jane Eyre is a lonely and fragile girl who lost her parents at a young age. Although her mother was born into a wealthy family, she was disowned for marrying a man of lower social standing. After her parents' death, Jane is taken in by her mother's brother. But after he dies, she is raised in the Gateshead estate by his wife, Mrs. Reed, who treats her as an outsider. At Gateshead, Jane is treated more like a servant. Her cousins Eliza, Georgiana, and especially the cruel John Reed constantly mistreat her. One day, after John physically assaults her, Jane fights back and is punished by being locked in the Red Room, the room where her uncle died. For Jane, it becomes a terrifying symbol of injustice. The Red Room scene symbolizes Jane's inner strength and her rebellion against injustice. Even at a young age, she refuses to submit to unfairness and fiercely guards her dignity and freedom. To get rid of Jane, Mrs. Reed sends her to a boarding school. This marks both an escape and the beginning of Jane's journey towards self-discovery. Lowood is a boarding school for poor girls, but instead of education, it offers hunger, cold, and punishment. The school's director, Mr. Brocklehurst, is a man who turns religion into cruelty. The students are forced to eat little, dress plainly, and act humbly. At Lowood, Jane befriends Helen Burns, a quiet, patient girl full of inner wisdom. Helen endures injustice with grace and teaches Jane the strength of forgiveness and patience. But Jane's spirit isn't as accepting as Helen's. She seeks justice and equality. When a tuberculosis outbreak strikes the school, Helen dies, leaving Jane devastated. Yet Helen's memory shapes Jane's spiritual growth. Over time, Jane excels at school and becomes a teacher, but her desire to explore pushes her to seek more. She places an ad in a newspaper and gets hired as a governess at Thornfield Hall, where she is responsible for the education of a little French girl named Adele. Thornfield is a quiet place. The seemingly kind mistress of the house, Mrs. Fairfax, welcomes Jane warmly. But the master of the house, Mr. Rochester, is nowhere to be seen. Until one day, Jane encounters a man falling off his horse. That man is Edward Rochester, stern, distant, and charismatic. Jane feels both shy and intrigued by him. As they get to know each other, Rochester becomes drawn to Jane's intelligence, honesty, and unique character. They form a rare intellectual bond. However, Thornfield Hall hides secrets. There are mysterious screams at night, an attempted arson, and a locked room. At the center of these eerie events is an unseen presence. Then, unexpectedly, Rochester proposes to Jane. Overjoyed, Jane accepts, finally feeling loved and that her life now has meaning. But on the wedding day, a lawyer interrupts the ceremony and reveals a devastating truth. Rochester is already married. His wife, Bertha Mason, is mentally ill and has been locked in the attic for years. Rochester had married her for money and social expectations, but he's been deeply unhappy. For Jane, the revelation is heartbreaking. She loves Rochester, but cannot abandon her principles. Refusing to live in dishonor, she leaves the estate without taking anything. This marks the height of her character. Jane is a warrior of virtue. Hungry and exhausted, she finds shelter at a house called Moore House. There, she's taken in by St. John Rivers and his sisters, Diana and Mary. Jane hides her identity and begins working as a teacher. Eventually, they discover that she is their cousin, and she learns she has inherited a large fortune. Jane shares her inheritance with her 3 cousins. Now, she is financially independent. St. John proposes to her, asking her to join him in a missionary journey. Not out of love, but duty. Jane declines. Her soul seeks love, not obligation. Then, one day, she feels an unexplainable call. She thinks she hears Rochester's name. Their bond hasn't been broken. Following this inner voice, she returns to Thornfield and finds it destroyed by fire. Bertha had set the house on fire and died in the flames. Rochester, trying to save her, lost his eyesight and one of his hands. He now lives alone in another house. Jane finds him. At first, he believes she is a ghost. But when Jane stands before him, he realizes she is real. This time, she is by his side of her own free will, as a free woman. They reunite, with no secrets, no barriers, and no imbalance between them. Eventually, Rochester regains sight in one eye. Jane and Rochester marry. In the end, Jane finds love, respect, and most importantly, her true self. Jane Eyre is far more than a fictional character. She is a symbol of the search for freedom, the struggle for identity, and a woman's journey to be heard in her own voice. Every step she takes is a declaration of independence. This is the story of a woman who finds herself through love, and sometimes despite it. With this novel, Charlotte Brontë didn't just write a love story. She wrote a graceful and powerful tribute to the resilience of womanhood. If this story moved you too, and you admired Jane's determination, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Which part hit you the hardest? Let me know in the comments. See you in the next book summary. Take care and keep getting lost in the magical world of books.